Mayor Lori Lightfoot and the family of 13-year-old Adam Toledo react to the video of the teen's shooting death by a Chicago police officer, which will reportedly be released tomorrow. That and much more in this week's Spotlight Politics. Joining us now are the team, Amanda Vinicky, Cherone and Paris Schutz. So the release of this video of the police shooting of 13-year-old Adam Toledo, temporarily delayed by his family. Here's what Mayor Lori Lightfoot had to say today.
I want to be respectful of the family, but I also do think that something like a police-involved shooting, particularly under these circumstances, it's important for us to be transparent. We try to be as transparent as we can, and we're going to work with the family to move this process along. But I think we have to be respectful of them and move at their speed.
And Heather, there's apparently been a leak of a screenshot of the tape showing Adam's hands up. If that is the case, not good for the city, which has 60 days to release these tapes. But Heather, what are you hearing?
Well, it's unclear what exactly the tape shows, but we do know generally what it shows, that it shows the death at the hands and the gun of a Chicago police officer of a 13-year-old boy. And that's going to be very difficult for a lot of people to watch tomorrow. And the city is on edge. You know, if you go to downtown or River North or any of the big commercial corridors, you'll see that the garbage trucks and the salt spreaders are already positioned for the mayor to sort of implement her protection plan that she developed after the protests in the wake of George Floyd's death last May. So it's one of those moments where it sort of collectively feels like we're all holding our breath to see what really happened on that night almost 2 weeks ago.
Paris, we know that the mayor has seen the video as well, and she has put a priority on transparency, but is that sort of a tough balance?
Well, the mayor and police superintendent David Brown, at least publicly, called for the release of this video. It was COPA, the oversight agency, that said, well, we don't know that we can because it involves a 13-year-old. Apparently, they went and consulted the law and said, okay, we can release this video, but not before we show it to the family. They showed it to the family yesterday. The family apparently wanted to have a delay, and then it's going to come out tomorrow. And, you know, speaking with community groups who have not seen the video, I mean, the consensus narrative that's forming here is Adam Toledo, you know, really is a victim of circumstances that put him in this position in the wee hours of the morning, apparently, you know, with an alleged bad actor here as officers were responding to shots fired from the ShotSpotter technology. I haven't seen the video. I haven't talked to people that have seen the video. It doesn't appear to me, reading the tea leaves, that it would show egregious police misconduct. More so, you know, this 13-year-old tragically being in this situation where this incident occurred. But again, it's still, as Heather said, going to be very difficult. And there are a lot of nervous Chicagoans that do remember what happened last summer twice. And by the way, that police response, at least for the first time, was panned by the Inspector General's office, saying the city really did not have its ducks in a row to protect the city.
So moving over to another police-involved shooting, this one in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, where an officer killed Daunte Wright instead of using her stun gun. Amanda, you covered this story a bit yesterday. Both the police chief and the officer, Kim Potter, have resigned. She, today, was arrested and charged. What is the charge and why?
Yeah, Brenda, you know, I mean, I don't have to tell you or anybody watching just how painful this is. Just it keeps coming, these tragic incidents of somebody dying at the hands of a police officer, somebody in authority. Kim Potter in this case charged with second-degree manslaughter. So she did pay bond and is out, but second-degree manslaughter there. One of the charges faced by Derek Chauvin, who of course is accused of second-degree manslaughter charge there for of George Floyd, that is, among other charges. Second-degree manslaughter is from, I'm not an expert in Minnesota law, but really it's showing culpable negligence or unreasonable risk, taking the chances of causing death.
Yeah, and in both cases, I think a lot of protesters, community members, disappointed that it's not a higher, more severe charge because just 10 miles away is the trial of Derek Chauvin, charged, as you mentioned, Amanda, in the death of George Floyd. His lawyers have begun his defense. Heather, what are his attorney's goals? Because do they only need just the one juror?
That's right, because it takes a unanimous verdict to convict former Officer Chauvin, and they want to raise reasonable doubt in at least that one juror's mind that perhaps George Floyd didn't die from the knee pressed to his neck for almost 9 minutes, but that perhaps it was his drug use, or perhaps it was a health condition such as a bad heart or asthma. They've brought their own experts to the stand to counter the prosecution's experts to sort of raise those questions. And this is really the crux of what the jury will be asked to decide, as soon as the end of this week, the beginning of next week, which I think is sort of adding to that collective, everybody's holding their breath moment, because the city has also said they're prepared to address if there are protests and unrest in the wake of that verdict, which I think adds to sort of the tension a lot of Chicagoans are feeling tonight.
So the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was pulled out of an abundance of caution after 6 people experienced rare blood clots out of 7 million doses, that is. Amanda, officials concerned about underserved communities being hit by the pause on this vaccine.
Yeah, and by the way, Governor J.B. Pritzker is among those who received that Johnson & Johnson vaccine. He says that he is feeling fine, though he is still within that window where he's got to be paying attention. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is one that really was seen as a game changer for several reasons, in that it didn't have to go through that super cold storage, and so therefore you could be more mobile with it. Also, just one dose, and so for people maybe that would have a hard time getting back to 2 appointments, don't have the ability, the transportation, the ability to take off work, maybe they're caregivers, kind of a one and done mentality, was really seen as, again, a way to get out to underserved communities. And so, yes, this is most definitely a concern. You've already seen Chicago, which this is something different. For the first time, Chicago, long been asking, finally going to get some extra vaccine doses from the state's allotment, but had to cancel these big plans, including walk-up Johnson & Johnson shots given at the United Center. So yeah, it's most certainly a dent in efforts to get to herd immunity.
Over to schools, CPS, the high school battle escalates as teachers worked remotely today in protest of CPS's plans to have teachers back in the buildings. They're still negotiating. Heather, what's the latest?
Well, the union says there's been some progress, but not enough progress towards a reopening plan that would allow students to return on Monday for the first time in more than a year. The crux of the matter remains what it was when we covered this when elementary schools were trying to be reopened. It's vaccines, this time for high school students who are eligible for the Pfizer vaccine if they're at least 16, as well as accommodations for teachers who are at greater risk of passing COVID-19 along to their family members who or relatives who may not have had a chance yet to get the vaccine. Now, as we understand it, everybody who works for CPS has been offered the chance to get the vaccine, but of course that's not true for all Chicagoans. Only about a quarter of all Chicagoans are fully vaccinated at this point, and that's a concern. So we'll have to see how this plays out, but the CTU now has a greater ability to bargain over their workers' working conditions after a bill was signed into law by Governor Pritzker, and we'll have to see how it plays out. Nothing is easy when it comes to reopening schools in the middle of a pandemic.
No. Amanda, Mayor Lightfoot has gotten, meanwhile, Senator Lightford, to carry her version of an elected school board. Tell us about the difference from other proposals.
Well, really, we don't know exactly yet. And Senator Lightfoot reportedly by the Sun-Times has COVID. So she is at home. She, according to reporting, feeling okay, but tired. So not sure what we're going to see or when we're going to see actually the language of that bill. But what it appears we're going to get is some sort of hybrid. And so there's already some frustration that is the route that Mayor Lightfoot is backing, particularly by, let's be clear, CTU, ever at odds, had not endorsed Lightfoot in the first place. And so, but this would be something where she would still have the ability to appoint some members to the CPS board. There's most certainly going to be a whole lot of action on this. I think we have to point out that Senator Kim Lightfoot is seen as sort of the guru of education in the Illinois General Assembly. And she also was just the leader of the Illinois Black Legislative Caucus. She holds a lot of sway in Springfield.
Can I jump in
having
there
her backing is significant.
Can I just remind everybody, though, that Senator Lightfoot is also on the board of Loretto Hospital, and obviously those reports of improper vaccinations. Loretto is supposed to be doing an audit that they've given to the city. The city is sort of reviewing this audit of what went wrong, if anything went wrong, what they learned from it. So there is that connection there. Lightfoot carrying Lightfoot's education bill, but also Lightfoot scolding Loretto Hospital, of which Lightfoot is a board member.
So that one is, I mean, both of those are going to be closely watched. Really interesting, obviously. The Obama Center, though, another thing that's interesting, announcing its groundbreaking today. Take a look at what Governor Pritzker had to say.
So I'm particularly proud of our state's Department of Transportation's plan, working with the city to support additional green space in this neighborhood, making it safer for pedestrians and for bicyclists to access the area, improving park trails and rerouting road traffic accordingly.
Now, Paris, the infrastructure that the governor is speaking of there cost the state $174 million. But former President Obama wasn't there today. What's up with that?
Well, you know, also strange about this press conference, as a lot of reporters noted today, was that there wasn't a whole lot of advance notice. Last night...
An hour and a half.
Yeah, an hour and a half advance notice. And usually, you know, the mayor, the governor, they set their schedules the night before. They let, you know, reporters know what's going to happen. Ostensibly here, perhaps to avoid protesters. And as you know, and as Amanda reported today, there still is pushback to the Obama Presidential Center. Perhaps the Obamas don't want to be seen here while there's still some kind of opposition to this being built, either by community groups wanting more benefits or by folks that don't believe it should be built in Jackson Park. And perhaps they want to see the shovels actually shoveling some dirt before they actually show up. Maybe they don't believe it's imminent quite yet, given all the delays it's faced.
And it wouldn't be a Spotlight Politics if we don't talk about a little bit of corruption. Ruby Acosta Sr., a political operative with ties to Alderman Ed Burke and Martin Sandoval, pleads guilty and agrees to cooperate. Heather, what's Acosta said he did, and what does it mean for Burke and Sandoval in about 30 seconds?
Well, he made the fundamental error of Chicago politics. You do not lie to the FBI. That's just always a trip to Problemsville, and Rudy Acosta is living there now. What he has to share with the feds on Alderman Burke and other assorted elected officials, time will only tell, but I am all ears and cannot wait for the revelations that he has promised in return for a reduced sentence.
One of many reporters on the edge of their seats. Our thanks to the Spotlight Politics team, Amanda Vinicky, Cherone and Paris Schutz.